to the most incredible episode of the Aaaction podcast because, Pete, what is today?
Today is the 100th episode of the Aaaction podcast.
That is right, people. You've tolerated us. Well, who knows if you tolerated us, but
You tolerated me for sure.
we were around for 100 episodes. And, of course, I have my brother Pete Dog with us. And we brought along for this journey Drew Stewart, who's also in our old ass movie classic ones. He's also just did Ghostbusters with us. And then lastly, we have John Cardiel joining us. John,
we haven't seen it in a while.
Yeah, what was the last podcast you did with us? Home Alone?
Ooh. Yeah, I think so. It's been a while.
Wow.
Thanks for having me back. It's an honor to be your 100th.
Yeah.
Like episode 20.
Yeah.
Well, and for the 100th episode, we wanted to pick a film that was unilaterally one of our favorites. And this one was supposed to be definitely a season one. This was supposed to be probably in the top 5 episodes. But then the fake Young Guns movie was produced. So Young Guns jumped this movie. And but we're finally doing Tombstone from 1993. This is directed by, and we'll get into some of this stuff, but this is directed by George P. Kosmatos, or at least he's the one that got credit for it. If you don't know his career, he also directed Cobra and Rambo First Blood Part 2. Did you know James Cameron wrote First Blood Part 2, by the way? Co-wrote it? I didn't know that.
I know that he co-wrote that, but then the writer of this one came up with the story for Rambo Part 2.
Yeah, and then they kind of took a story and then went it to make it like, hey, you have a good script, but let's make it worse. And
has there ever been a dumber named like sequence of First Blood Part 2? Like
only like Menace to Society while you're drinking their juice. Like only spoof movies have titles.
Those are intentionally ridiculous.
Yeah. This is written, just mentioned, by Kevin Jarre. He also wrote Glory, as well as the story by Rambo First Blood Part 2. Also The Mummy he also wrote. And at the time when he wrote this, Kevin Jarre had a nice, like, he was really well known because he'd coming off Glory and an Oscar for that. So he was a hot property when this movie started. And this movie will star, of course, Kurt Russell, Val Kilmer, Sam Elliott, Powers Boothe, Michael Biehn, among others. And quick premise of this movie: a successful lawman's plans to retire anonymously in Tombstone, Arizona are disrupted by the kind of outlaws he was famous for eliminating. Hey, what do you think about that premise?
It's fine, I guess. It's silly. This movie there's so much depth to it. Like, just to encapsulate it in one dumb sentence is silly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean the genesis of this film, like why it was created, was, they wanted to do a Western, and they wanted to do something that people knew, though. So one of the most popular events that people knew off the top of their head before the movies were like the Tombstone OK Corral incident, Billy the Kid, of course, Wild Bill Hickok. And so ultimately they realized there's never really been a film that fully captured Wyatt Earp and the relationship with his brothers, his wife and his future wife, as well as the OK Corral. Like, if you watch have any of you guys seen like
the Cowboys
or the John Ford one, like My Darling Clementine, or any of those? Yeah, I mean they're much more like old school Hollywood, like just action pieces. Where this one, you can definitely tell, has a lot of depth to it. So that's a big reason why we're watching this. I consider it one of the greatest Westerns of all time, both old and new. And, this film's got everything. And so let's get right into it. Pete Dog, what do you love most about this film?
This is one of my absolute favorite movies. This is an epic without the length of an epic. Like, there's just so much crammed into this movie, but it's done beautifully. It's like having an entire movie of exposition, almost, really, because it's so much information. It's very rich. I remember when I first saw an advert for this movie and I saw a trailer for it, I anticipated a very hokey sort of Western because it looked very modern all the mustaches were like really big, and I just remembered like going into it like with this, like this is not gonna be good, right? Because Kurt Russell, I think I just seen him in maybe Tango and Cash or Big Trouble in Little China or something, but that's all I really knew him as.
Would have been Tango and Cash for us because that was definitely right before this.
Yeah, so I'm like, there's no way that they're going to be able to pull this off. And of course, enter Val Kilmer, who just it just glows on this screen and comes out, and he gives you everything in the world. This this role and this performance by Val Kilmer is top five for me of all time, of actors doing a particular role. Um, this is his greatest performance. I know that some might argue that it was Jim Morrison or even Iceman, but I mean this is the classic perfect performance. Or At First Sight, that's true. Or Real Genius. Yeah, that was a good one. We didn't do top five Val Kilmer movies. That would have been awesome, but whatever.
I've been for the podcast to come up with that idea.
So after my hokey thoughts going into it, I watched this movie, and I just, the grittiness of this movie and how realistic and how very violent this movie actually is. I mean, some of the murder scenes, they don't really show them, but I mean, the implications behind them are really kind of brutal. However, there's also an element of comedy in this movie. There are very heartfelt moments. There's romance. The introductions to each character are absolutely flawless in terms of the screenwriting and the performances. Like Wyatt when he's hitting the horse, when you first introduced to him. But then I also love how you also see like multiple sides of these characters at the same time. For example, Curly Bill, like he is an awful, ruthless, just jokes at life, and yet he stands up for this clear gay guy who is in love with the actor. Like he just stands up for him, and like you just see like these like dual personalities throughout this entire film, and everything just flowed with this movie. From scene to scene, character to character, everything just worked flawlessly. And yeah, it's one of my favorite films. This is going to be a great episode, a very difficult episode, but a great one.
Sure. Drew, what do you got?
I agree. I mean, there's a reason we chose this for the 100th episode, and to be fired up for this. I feel like right on the heels of Ghostbusters for us, like we're talking the most important movies of my childhood. You throw this in the mix with Star Wars and Ghostbusters and Goonies and some other movies. Like this is, as I'm hitting high school, this is coming out, and I think probably one of the first sort of like rated R movies that I was allowed to watch, like under the guise of like being Western. Like they're probably, so thinking it was mostly violence or whatever. Anyhow, it is. So we did Shawshank a while ago, and I was on the other side of it because I said it was too perfect. Like it seemed like it was a movie that was being trying to be constructed to be like in a laboratory, all the things. And I like Shawshank, but
I don't remember you saying it was too perfect.
Yeah, it was like
they were trying to make it into a.
Yeah, I remember you bashing it. I remember you bashing the movie.
I did not bash it. My point is this. Tombstone is similarly Hollywood, right? Like 93, also right before kind of all of the indie craze happens. Like when I really started like loving movies with like Kevin Smith and some of the Coen brothers start to get hot. So it still is so Hollywood, and I think in many ways constructed to be a perfect movie, but it doesn't rub me the wrong way really at any point, except for the one point we'll talk about when we talk about director's chair. It is, like you said, Pete, it is great character development. It is funny. It is sad. It is exciting. It is all of those things you would want. The mustaches are outrageous. I read something about this movie that the lightning and the mustaches were all real.
Yeah. Only one actor didn't grow up.
One mustache wasn't real. The rest of them were real. That's astonishing.
Who's the one
I think it's the marshal, the guy that kind of is like coordinating Dana Delaney. I think his
Oh,
is
Biehn?
yeah, Biehn. The rest of them
Yeah,
are
it was.
Because
and
he's
so,
gonna be shaving for like another film or something like that. So
exactly. Like, and I mean, and they're amazing. Like Wyatt Earp, you could have like
He didn't deserve a mustache.
no, you could have a timeshare in Wyatt Earp's mustache. But anyway, the lightning was real. It's so my point about the lightning is like everything, including Mother Nature, came together and conspired to turn this into the film that it was. And I just love everything about it. I can't wait to talk about it.
yeah, for sure. Awesome. John Bear,
I'm
what
with
do you
that.
I'm excited because of points I have to echo. So you guys said exactly what I like, both of you in certain points. Peter, I agree with you about Kilmer. This is amazing for him. I
Thank
remember
you.
being a kid and like it was probably way over our heads at the time. Like this movie, we couldn't fully, at my age at least, take it in for what it was worth. But every kid that saw it went to the playground saying the one-liners, and I don't want to say any of them now because I'm sure we're all going to be speaking about his one-liners later. But it was a perfect role for him. It's my favorite of all his roles, and I've watched almost all of his movies. And then to the second point that Drew made too, yeah, it's a foundational memory when it comes to movies for me. Like I got Goonies as my childhood like adventure movie, just like you. Um, I can go on, but this isn't be my Western. You know, this is a foundational Western memory of me that I just love Westerns. I didn't know much about them at the time.
Yeah, that's
Go ahead.
interesting because I don't remember really seeing like a proper Western before this one. I think this was like the introduction into that genre for me.
Me
No,
too, and like I would see
Say
it in the
again?
background. Go ahead, Pete, Paul.
Young Guns 2. Young Guns
Yeah.
2.
Oh, Young Guns 2 was before
Yeah.
this? Oh, okay, that was the introduction.
But I just
This was
remember,
the boom.
yeah, I just remember like Westerns and my uncles and my dad, like seeing them in the background, but like the originals. But this one just hit home because it was produced in our generation. I can go on, like I remember Nightmare on Elm Street. It's foundational memory for me. As far as like horror films, that's the one that I got to see where I was coming of age and really enjoyed movies. Fast Times at Ridgemont High, you know, like a teen movie. So this kind of just ranks in those foundational memories of genres to me. This would be the one that actually just sculpted me to, you know, put something there where I loved Western movies because of it.
Yeah. And to expand upon some of the things you're saying, you know, and in reading the behind the scenes book, you know, one of the things that they really went out of their way and even spent extra money on it was just the pure authenticity of everything. I mean, like you're saying, like, even though we think the mustaches are, you know, crazy looking or whatever, those are actually the authentic ones that they wore at the times. All the actors went beyond kind of the Call of Duty and would research articles and everything because everybody was just really, really bought into this script of Kevin Jarre. And whether it was the costume designers, the set designers, they built the set in Mescal, Arizona, but they had the map of the city, and they would, I mean, it was just, again, like they not a lot of movies do that. And I think that's why, even though we may not know it like the first time we watch it, like the more you watch it, you can just tell the detail of everything. Like apparently, you know, Doc Holliday's bedroom, which is in like a minute of film, like they spent so much money making it such a special look that was close to authentic of what he would have had. So that's one of the,
And that's true to his character. I mean, he's so proper and he's so particular and he's so gentlemanly. Like he would have had to have that kind of a room. It
Yeah.
wouldn't have fit him to have just some rundown
no,
little room.
that was the other part where, you know, Kevin Jarre really focused his attention on was, you know, again, a lot of the Westerns that we're used to seeing are, you know, everyone's just kind of dressed down and that, but because Tombstone was this real posh city, people dressed exactly like they dressed because they had wealth and money. It was one of the fastest rising cities of all time, and there was just money flowing. So they would fly in, or not fly, sorry. They would ship in, you know, actual like Paris fashions and stuff like that. And that was just unheard of around that time. You know, New York would have it, of course, but not a Western town, but they had so much money. So, yeah.
As the narrator told us in his opening statement about the Paris fashions,
Exactly.
I love the way they started the movie too. Like they just started with that old style kind of camera and the reels, and it's just like
Yeah.
you see clips of the movie eventually, but you know it's just
Yeah,
what a
they matched
great movie.
real footage along with reshot footage. Obviously, there's a shot of like Kurt Russell in it where you're like, oh, okay, it's not all found footage. And then like the final shot is from the movie called The Great Train Robbery, which is the first Western of all time. Um, and so apparently, originally when that shot came out in theaters, it freaked everybody out because they're not used to seeing images, and so they thought the guy was going to shoot them. So caused a big skirt. But
A
You
kerfuffle.
you mentioned the narrator, and one thing I wanted to say is like, and I'm sure we're going to get into this, but the other piece about this movie that's unbelievable is every single time a new scene starts, there's another actor that you're like, oh my God, I can't believe this guy's in there. I mean,
yeah,
it is so crowded with amazing actors. It
Yeah.
is unreal. And to the point that Robert Mitchum is the narrator.
yeah,
Just like he was supposed to be in the film and like got hurt falling off a horse, and so they made him the narrator. I mean, you can't find somebody in this that isn't unbelievable.
yeah, for sure. And then like there's a couple guys like I never even noticed were in this, like John Corbett,
Yeah.
who did like
One of the Cowboys.
Sex and the City. Like I never knew he was in this one, and so I was like, I saw his name, I was like, oh, wow, okay,
So respect. He did Northern Exposure.
okay. I don't think I ever.
He's a little too young for Northern Exposure, Drew.
Yeah, seriously. All right, awesome. Well, I'm gonna hand out some first points. First of all, we got to give Drew a point for his costume, best costume. That's a
Oh, I'm
no-brainer.
gonna keep track.
1 point for Drew. And then background, obviously, I got to give it to John. We picked the same thing, so I got to give John his credit there. And then I'm gonna give Pete Dog for the explanation. I really didn't want to make it 1-1-1, but yeah, I
But
think
you can't deny me.
you can't deny it. But
Can't
great
deny
job.
this.
I enjoyed everybody's thing. A couple quick little things, budget and box office. So this was, and I think the numbers, they don't have everything, but this was roughly a $25 million film, and it grossed $56 million. And so this
That's
was,
surprising.
yeah, it obviously wasn't, but I think it just, John kind of touched it. Like Westerns weren't really like quote unquote back yet. And so they were still really just hitting the surface, because you basically had Dance with the Wolves, which won Oscars.
Wolves.
What I said.
Wolves. There's an L in that show.
And you had Unforgiven as well. And then you had like Young Guns 2. Young Guns 2. Those were really like the only like super popular. You're talking like maybe one a year.
Right.
Not a lot. But now I think there was a period where I think there was a little bit more Westerns. And then the reviews, again, I feel like it's kind of low, but 7.8 IMDb rating.
That's nice. I'll take it.
No, I think that's low for an all-time great movie. This is easily a 9.
I was shocked to like the Metacritic was super low.
Yeah, the Metacritic was only 50.
Makes no sense.
That's
like,
ridiculous. That's
people don't have
crazy.
eyeballs and brains.
Yeah, like we're gonna go. I'll read some of these just so you guys can see. It's crazy, but the best one was an 80, which again is crazy. Tombstone is incredibly entertaining. While not entirely original and not always well executed, it manages to keep your attention for the entire 130-minute duration. And let's face it, Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday is really what sets it apart. Now, that was IGN. They're like a video game movie magazine. Middle of the road one was Chicago Sun-Times. As shamelessly,
Which is Siskel.
yeah, but it didn't have his name attached to it. I think I heard they both
Probably him.
They both wrote for it, didn't they?
they wrote for the newspaper, but I read something because I was like, well, how did they not review this movie? And apparently both of them didn't think this movie was going to be that big of a deal, so none of them saw it and reviewed it in time. And then finally everyone kept saying, wow, this movie, and so that's when they finally reviewed it. But someone else had already reviewed it, so they don't actually have a review for this movie. As shamelessly as Tombstone rips off pieces of Unforgiven, you can rest assured none of them relate to Eastwood's strong portrayal of woman or his antipathy toward violence. The latest shootout at the OK Corral is only a prelude to your basic bloodletting in the name of mass entertainment. That is cloud a little bit.
That is a really horrible review. There's nothing about this movie that is akin to Unforgiven. Like, even a little bit.
Like
at all.
They're
And it's also
completely different movies.
Yeah.
and it's also not gratuitously violent. In fact, like there's a lot more like sort of like messaging of violence versus the like it's crazy.
and it's also part of the story, right? Like this is why it pulls them back into being the sheriff and the marshal, right? They didn't want to do that, and so the violence is a character in a way, you know what I mean? So
Yeah, and it's part of why it's character arc. I mean, he's very much the peacekeeper. He does everything with his intimidation to avoid actual bloodshed. But if he has to go to that next level, believe me, he will do it. And we see that progression.
and here's the last
What
one.
a dumb comment.
This is from the Miami Herald. Renee Rodriguez. This is bad. For the most part, Tombstone is inept. Some of the performances are winsomely bad. Dana Delaney playing a touring actress with the hots for Wyatt is particularly embarrassing. Director George,
Even though it's his wife.
yeah, director George P. Kosmatos, Leviathan. He directed Leviathan. Firmly cements his hack status. He takes nearly an hour to get things rolling, then fails to build any sort of momentum. Like
That person must have just been deaf and blind watching this film.
like literally
That's
from
really unbelievable.
so that's insane. All right, now this is going to lead us to this is going to be a hotly contested battle here, and I trust no one in this competition right now because I know you guys are gonna have weird ass lists, and I'm gonna have the only normal list here. So I'm curious to see what you guys are gonna do for your top 5 modern westerns. I put the end date for modern western at 1985. The only reason was because Silverado was 1985. Even though that's probably closer to the 70s models versus this one. You can even say 88, but we get my point. Modern westerns, top 5 modern westerns, 1985. We're gonna start with Drew because Pete went last time.
Right.
Drew, what do you got?
Number 5, I have the modern True Grit from the Coen Brothers. Yeah, I love that film. Jeff Bridges, Matt Damon in yet another like quirky and awesome role. He's doing later.
Matt Damon.
I've really grown to like some of the just roles he's choosing to do. It's funny.
Matt Damon is amazing. I love Matt Damon.
I can't remember the name of the young woman that's in that film, but she does a remarkable job.
Haley Steinfeld.
Thank you. Anyway, just a great movie. Number 4 for me, this is where I'll get controversial and Paul's going to complain. So you said Western after 1985. I'm taking some liberties when I say modern Western. If we meant simply a more recent film of horses and that type of thing, fine. But I have Hell or High Water, which is one of the better movies that I've seen in the last 10 years.
Hell or High Water is a fantastic film.
Yes. And a Western.
Got nominated for it. Right? The screenplay got nominated for an Oscar.
I love that film. Chris Pine, Ben Foster, Jeff Bridges, the waitress in the diner, in one of the best tiny roles of all time. Bank robbers on the loose instead of horses. You got cars. West Texas. I love that film.
Right.
Number 3, it got nominated for Best Picture that year too. I forgot about that.
Mm-hmm.
Number 3, a more sort of classic Western, in modern, and probably will be number 1 on some people's lists. Unforgiven, amazing. Clint Eastwood, Gene Hackman. I find often about how much I love Gene Hackman. Morgan Freeman early on. What's that? Number 3.
Number 3.
Number 2 for me, similar to my Hell or High Water choice. I have No Country for Old Men, which is probably one of my 5 favorite movies of all time. Incredible. Coen Brothers in my mind. I have them twice on this list. They can do no wrong for. That's not true. They've made a couple duds, but in general, they've made some of the best movies I've seen in my lifetime. What's that?
2 or 3 or 4 or 5. Yeah.
I'm not saying that they haven't made some films that aren't as good, but the great films that they've made are generationally talented.
That movie, there's a character who is very similar to the way Doc Holliday is performed, just a perfection in performance and writing, and what an amazing role.
I was literally just like we talked about Val Kilmer, Bardem in that is he was made to be that.
Sorry.
Like, he can't ever be anything else. Like he was made to be Anton Chigurh. And the number one is Tombstone, this movie. This is seminal in my youth. It is my favorite Western of all time. I love this movie and I'm so excited.
Awesome. All right,
John. List.
What do you got?
Oh, that's good. All right. We'll start with number 5, provocative Western, and I love it because of the director, Quentin. I went with The Hateful Eight, completely just because I love Quentin Tarantino. He brought something fun to the Western genre. It was a classic bloody shoot 'em up when we finally get to his apex of the film and the writing, and love the cast. So it was pretty awesome. Number 4, I got True Grit on here as well. Simply put, Haley Steinfeld, I thought she stole the show. So most of this list is going to be, actors that stole the show and just made it very fun for me. But yeah, he did a great job with that movie. I wish I was acting like that at that age. Freaking awesome. And it was a great movie overall, which I loved. Number 3, kind of recent, I think out there as far as like the way the story moves. But I think Jesse, what's his name? I think it's Jesse Plemons. Is that Kirsten Dunst's husband in Power of the Dog? It's a hell of a movie, I thought. I know, like I said, interesting writing. I get it. Where you're saying it's not a.
Paul's gonna murder you.
I understand, but it gets in. There's a reason it gets.
I've never seen it, but Paul hates this movie. I've never seen it.
IMDb tears it up. Rotten Tomatoes gives it a 94. Like Metacritic blasts it with almost like a 90. It's like an 89. It's it's a thinker. It's a deep subject matter. Watch it. Just for the acting alone, Benedict Cumberbatch, one of his best performances ever. I think Kirsten Dunst come back to the role later in her age, and you see why she was Kiki Dunst, why she was doing her thing at a young age. It's just a very well acted movie, in my opinion.
Jesse
number two on the list, once again, driven by actors, and this one also the score was 310 to Yuma. I think when it comes to the music supervision and just the audio engineering behind this movie, the downtime, I like minimal art with negative space. Same thing in movies. I like when there's downtime in movies and there's build up. I think this was very much an amazing movie based on the pace, the acting, and the score alone. And then number 1 on my list, of course, is Tombstone. It's a foundational memory for me for movies. So how can I not put it at number 1? Yeah.
Sure. Awesome. All right, Pete, what do you got?
Okay. Well, there are some similarities, and just for the sake of acknowledging another movie, I'm going to change my number 5 because I had it at 310 to Yuma because I absolutely, we've talked about this before. I love that film. It's a great film. However, my number 5 is going to be a movie that people steered me away from for over a decade, 15 years probably. And then I finally watched it, and I thought it was one of the more beautiful films that I've ever seen. Beautifully shot, beautifully performed, beautifully written. The assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. I just saw it for the first time maybe 8 to 9 months ago, and I was completely floored. And I just absolutely love this film. That's my number 5.
I think it's like 20 minutes of that movie is like perfect. The rest of that movie, it's a little bit of a slow roll, but I love that movie too.
I don't know. I think after that first 20 minutes, like you're so engaged in that world and with that journey, like if you really give a shit about storytelling, you're going to go through that journey willingly, which I did.
I think that movie can go with like against Tombstone, like again, how like the movie starts. And then just with the music and the cinematography, like all that combined, I think those two movies go toe to toe in the first 20 minutes. The only difference is this movie, I think, continues it, whereas it gets a little more dialogue heavy. There's 2 different movies.
Sure. But no, I absolutely appreciate this film. So that's my number 5. I'll make that number 5. Number 4 for me is one of John Baer's Hateful Eight. I thought it was just another cinematic achievement of Quentin Tarantino. Just the wide shots alone. I mean, forget about the acting. The wide shots of that movie are just absolutely breathtaking.
Did anybody see that in the 70 millimeter IMAX or no?
Well,
I did.
Oh yeah,
My brother-in-law made me, or he mentioned it to me, so I had to go see it that way.
Stunning.
Yes.
Incredible. Okay.
Number 3, Young Guns 2. This movie was transformational. Not only with what we saw, we've talked about this movie before. We've reviewed it as a group, but musically, everything about this movie was just absolutely fantastic. This was, as you reminded me, my introduction into Western movies. Number 2 is Unforgiven, because if there was no Tombstone, Unforgiven is the best Western ever made. It's a beautiful film, and Clint Eastwood comes in and just absolutely crushes that role and crushes that movie. It's a beautiful film. Number 1 though is Tombstone. Tombstone is like the best movie, Western post 1985 for sure.
Yeah. I have a similar but different list than many of you. I forgot a film, and then you reminded me of it because I was only searching on a certain list. But my number 5. So I'm going to say my original number 5 since I'm last. But my original number 5 was Hostels with Christian Bale. I absolutely love that film.
That's great.
So I ended up bumping that one up because I forgot about Unforgiven. But ultimately, I put True Grit as my number 5 for all the reasons we.
Yeah, that hurt. That hurt not to put it in mine.
I love the music, and I loved Haley Steinfeld in that, along with, Josh Brolin, everything. It's just a really well-crafted film.
So good.
Yeah. Like my number 4 is Unforgiven, only because I don't watch it as much as my other 3. But I agree with Pete. It's probably the best, like pure drama of a Western. Yeah. Best,
Thank you.
That's like written when it comes to just the pure drama of it. My number 3 is probably the most decorated Western of all time, and that's Dances with Wolves.
Wolves.
I love that film growing up, and I've seen it so many times. But that one just kind of blew my mind on how expansive a film can be, and like.
See, I was gonna put that on my list, knowing that would have won me the point, but
Yeah,
I didn't. I didn't, just because.
That would have easily got you the point there.
John
usually got me the point.
Dunbar. That's the Dunbar.
I could easily put Dances with Wolves number 1. Is it
Wolves?
But just because it's so longer, I don't watch it so much. You know what I mean? My number 2 is actually everyone else's number 1, but it's Tombstone. And the only reason I think Tombstone is actually better than my number 1. But the only reason I put my number 1 is because this is like my favorite film, and it's Young Guns 2. I just absolutely love the Billy Kid character along with Emilio Estevez, and its rewatchability is just simply higher than it is with Tombstone. And just like I've also been to Tombstone, like I've also been to the real Lincoln and Lincoln County, and so it's just absolutely awesome to watch the films and then also be where they took place, and so that's why I put it number 1. And I know it's not a better film, but
no Back to the Future 3 on anybody's list. That's crazy.
I mean, Western. It is though, because that's why I actually like it like almost the most, is because it's a Western. But yeah, it's just, and I don't actually think it's better than these 5 as a Western, if that makes sense.
It would be in my top 10 for sure.
And let's just rotate. I'll let you guys have if you guys have any honorable mentions. We'll just start with Drew and then just rotate. Just give 1, and then we'll go out till we exhaust them, because I want to give a shout out to films.
Oh man, I wasn't ready for honorable mentions.
That's fine. That's fine. We'll just go to John. There's no points to the honorable mentions, so.
No, because like my films that just made it outside, you already mentioned, was Unforgiven and Assassination of Jesse James. So I'm looking at my list on the borderline. Okay. You had already mentioned them.
I would say a very underrated, amazing Western is Open Range, with Costner. That's it's such a great film. It's long, but it takes you all the way through, just like Assassination of Jesse James. You're in that movie the whole time.
Yeah, no, I love that one.
Thank you.
Also, Django Unchained, I would consider that a one.
Revenant, sure.
We already said 3:10 to Yuma.
Oh yeah.
Quick and the Dead.
And this is probably a controversial one, but I like Maverick.
But forget Maverick. Quick and the Dead. That's a sneaky, fun,
good
Western movie.
Like with like Leo before he explodes, and
not better than Maverick.
Gene Hackman just crushing like he always
Brokeback
does.
Mountain considered a Western?
I think so.
Yeah.
Want
some wars.
That's kind of Western.
For series, I would say Deadwood for the series for sure.
Deadwood crushes. Forget it.
Heck yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to give... Yeah, I was going to give my point to John, but his upset pick alert of the week with... what was the movie called again? Power of the Dog?
Yes.
Power of the Dog. That ruined it.
Twice. And I think there's... I think a movie tried too hard. That's all. I'm going to be nice about that movie. So I'm going to give it to Pete because Pete had Young Guns. He was the only one to have Young Guns, and that was obviously my number one.
I'll make you famous.
Well, yeah. Yoo-hoo. I'll make you famous.
You do.
So Pete will get the point. Pete is now taking the lead. We have many other categories, people. And the next one, and John's going to lead us off, in the Oscar go-tos. This can be a cast member, crew member, whoever you just think won the movie.
Yep.
And
I know what
the
he's going to say.
Oscar goes to, even though he wasn't nominated, Val Kilmer. Wow. Like, I would love to, I didn't do the research. I would love to know, anyone know who was nominated that year? Because here's the interesting fact about Val Kilmer. He was nominated for this role for 2 MTV Movie Awards, but not for the Oscar. He was nominated for Best Male Performance and Most Desirable.
Who needs an Oscar when you,
I mean, so he got the 2 MTV nods, but yeah, exactly. I don't think you need the Oscar, but yeah, the dude's. I mean, I still think about him. I tried practicing the one-liners prior to us jumping on this podcast, and I can't pull them off, but they're amazing. So I'm not gonna do them. Someone's gonna do them later, I'm sure. But Val just rocks it. He should have won the damn Oscar.
Yeah. It looks like. Well. Best Picture.
Was that like Philadelphia?
Yeah. Schindler's List, The Piano, Fugitive, Name of the Father, Remains of the Day. And what did you say? Best actor? Or
This would have been supporting. This would have been a supporting. Yeah. So it sounds like it was a serious year for best film. So they probably didn't give the nod because of the entertainment value and the genre of this film.
Yeah. I was Tommy Lee Jones for The Fugitive. I mean, he was good, but I mean,
he's pretty good.
I don't remember any of his lines from that movie.
Really? I remember like every one of his lines.
You're better than me.
That movie's so good. He deserved that award for sure, because he wasn't going to get one after that. But man, Val Kilmer, you could make an argument that this performance was better than that one.
I mean, maybe even Best Picture too. I mean, I think Liam that year. I'm not sure. Oh, no. Tom Hanks won it for Philadelphia, but I would take Val Kilmer's performance over Tom Hanks for like overall, like any acting performance. All right, Pete, what do you got?
I mean, I feel like I could make a compelling argument to win the point with Val Kilmer, because I have notes after notes after notes. Because I mean, that's still
the point.
Clear. No, I don't. I'm gonna go something. I'm gonna go a little bit different. I was gonna go original score, because the music is just really phenomenal in this movie. It really does bring you along. I'm gonna say Kevin Jarre gets best original screenplay. That's the award should go to. Each scene pays off from, it's just in the scene itself, it completes a loop, but then it also pays off in the end. Each character introduction of this film, it's flawless. I mean, people always talk about how Back to the Future is like studied in film schools, and that's like the perfect script. And I would argue that, yes, that's probably the best. I would argue that this one should be studied as well and mimicked and copied, because of the format in which the way that he wrote this film. It just gave the actors everything they needed in order to do their jobs properly.
Yeah.
I mean, even the opening scene in the wedding, I mean, it really does set the tone. And I love movies, by the way, that start with the villains, like Star Wars. You know what I mean? Like when they start with a villain before they get to the main hero. But it really does set the like the reality, the cruelty, the violence, almost a disregard for human life. And that's just like echoed throughout the entire movie. They drag off the bride at the end, and you just, God knows what they're going to do to her. But just like with the violence, they don't actually show the violence; they just imply it, and it's just horrific when you're watching it. You get introduced to Ringo, who is the absolute perfect villain, and the way that he recites that speech, that caption from the Bible, that look in his eye was almost like he wanted it so badly. Um, he almost admired it, right? And so the writing, he wouldn't have been able to perform that if it wasn't written so beautifully. So best screenplay, Senior Jarre.
For sure. I'm going to make some points on some of Pete's comments, but I'm going to go to Drew first because I want to make sure it doesn't alter anything.
All right. So the reason I didn't talk about Val Kilmer in the opening when you both did is because I assumed that this would be a point of conversation for the Academy Award goes to. I mean, so I will not use Val Kilmer. I will not try to steal the point. He's unbelievable, and he is it. Like you guys have already said, I'm not sure that anybody was born to play a role more than Val Kilmer was born to play Doc Holliday. Like if we had to go and say like who else would do a good job, I can't. I'm not even going to try. That nobody would do anything approximating what he did. But so I will say Kurt Russell. And I'll say Kurt Russell because Doc is the obvious choice. Doc steals a lot of scenes, though Wyatt Earp is the author of a lot of great lines, and I'm not going to say any right now because they may come up later. But he has some amazing lines, and his presence, like his eyes, I don't know how they filmed his eyes out from underneath that hat. But he looks like almost like a non-human at certain points in like the most amazing way. He's like an apparition almost. And
he has the look of both predator and prey.
Totally. And when he, like you said, that opening scene with the horse,
Josephine,
and he sets the stage where he just grabs the reins from that guy and smacks him around for treating the horse that way. And you're like, oh, who is this guy? And then he talks about how he's only killed one person. And like, so then we think like maybe he's just Law and Order. And then to watch how he changes, I think Kurt Russell does an amazing job. I think that character is incredibly complicated and great and smart and funny and tough. And the last thing I'll say, Kurt Russell as the human for this production was instrumental. When they did the director change at the last second and they went to Kosmatos, you know, even Val Kilmer says, like, if it wasn't for Kurt, like we all looked to Kurt. And you know, he almost should have had probably de facto directing credits to this for like what he did to get this thing through with the new director and sort of his passion for this project. So for me, Tombstone is not what it is if it's not for Kurt Russell.
Yeah. I think the real answer is I think you guys are all right. All these guys are deserving MVP. But Val Kilmer, like, you know, this is where the collaboration of these projects are so important. And Val Kilmer, a lot of the most iconic things in this are improvised or ad-libbed. And that's, again, like what he brings to it. Like his accent was something that he came up with because he felt, you know, because he researched character and he had kind of a Southern aristocrat kind of a dialect. And so he brought that. And then, you know, the wink during the OK Corral scene, like that was improvised. That's not in the script.
Being able to do that thing with the coin, I've tried doing that my whole life, and I've never been able to do it.
He worked on his you know, gun toting skills constantly because he knew that was such an important part of the film. Yeah, he added absolutely so much. Kevin Jarre, So a little bit of the history on that. So Kevin Jarre is the one that got this movie made. Obviously, it was his script, but when you write a script, you're more selling it to somebody, versus he tried to get it made, and then he wanted Kevin Costner to actually be the guy, but then Kevin Costner had already started working on his Wyatt Earp script, and so that was like a big side thing going on with both these films. Was they essentially
It's
were
like Deep Impact on Armageddon.
Yeah, exactly. And at that time, whoever put out the first one typically won the race, won the movie, whether it was better or not. And so
Right.
that heavily involved in. So this movie actually got dropped and got put in turnaround. And Kevin Costner actually told the studio, like, hey, actually, no, I might be getting that mixed up. I've read two different things on that one. But ultimately, Kevin Jarre kept pushed to get it in turnaround, and then eventually other people picked it up and got it made. And so again, going to, Pete's point, Kevin Jarre, this movie doesn't get made without him, because this movie was literally stuck in.
Thank you.
But Pete, you're wrong actually with the script, because the script, what we see in the movie, is actually not the script that was written. And so Kevin Jarre's script was much more expansive. And
Yes, but you need a launching point, and what he provided these actors.
Let me finish. So when Kevin Jarre got fired, and he ultimately got fired because everyone thought he was in over his head, including Kurt Russell, they brought in George P. Kosmatos, but he was more of a ghost director, because they didn't want Kurt Russell's name as the director, because he had never directed anything, and so it was more of like a marketing ploy, because George had the credits. But like somebody had said, Val Kilmer was the one that will credit Kurt Russell for really keeping this movie alive. And so, and I think that's where I go to Drew's point, which is Kurt Russell obviously is the star of this film, and he's a great Wyatt Earp. He obviously, I think, beat Kevin Costner toe to toe in the similar roles, right? But again, it was really what he did beyond the camera, and took over this film, and really directed it, and led everybody to continue to buy in after, because they basically reshot everything that Kevin Jarre did, except for the Charlton Heston scenes.
But that's not to take away from Costner's performance of Wyatt Earp, because I mean, I think that they're two completely different movies, right? Like, this one is like, he has to evolve into this violent, awful person, as opposed to
when you think of Wyatt Earp,
a lifelong epic.
You think of Kurt Russell, you don't think of Kevin Costner. And again,
that's true. That's true.
Of Kurt Russell in this. But again, to kind of wrap it up so we can continue on, I'm gonna give the point to Drew, because I'm even debating it, because I can agree with literally all of you, but I think again, the movie doesn't get the movie's not why we're talking about it if it wasn't for Kurt Russell. I truly believe, because Val Kilmer's role was only a small part, but Kurt Russell literally kept the movie alive. So good job, Drew, on that.
How good is the score, though? Just saying, like the music itself was just.
Score's amazing. Again,
so good.
You could literally, there's 3 people you can vote and be the MVP and make a good argument about it. Like,
and by the way, I can break down Doc Holliday's intro scene in such detail. I won't bore our audience right now, because this will be a 9-hour podcast, but it's what a flawless scene.
Yeah, for sure.
Sneaky, like, best supporting actor, like, unsung hero of this movie is Ike Clanton. That dude is unbelievable.
He's such a piece of shit.
It's unbelievable, but he lives that character.
Yeah, totally. He's such a dick.
All right, next category we have is the give me award for different castings. What? What? Pete said, "Oh."
No, I didn't.
You went like,
no, I didn't.
Get a dumb face on camera for nothing.
I just have a dumb face.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna read a couple of the things. I don't know if I'm gonna give a point for this, because I'm still processing what I want to do. But there's some casting involved in it. Like I already mentioned, Kevin Costner. was the number one choice for Wyatt Earp, and ultimately he chose a different project. William Dafoe was actually the original choice to play Doc Holliday, but the studio Buena Vista would not distribute the film if he was cast because of the controversial Last Temptation of Christ film that he was in.
A dumb reason.
Yeah. So, but again, that's fortuitous because, I mean, with all due respect to William Dafoe, I mean,
thank God.
Yeah, Val Kilmer delivered one for the ages. Drew had already mentioned this, but Robert Mitchum was signed on to star as Old Man Clanton, but he fell from his horse, and ultimately they moved him into the narration role. Longtime veteran Western actor Glenn Ford originally signed on as Marshall White, but had to withdraw because of health, and that then went to Harry Carey Jr. Mickey Rourke turned down the role of Johnny Ringo. John McTiernan.
Thank God.
Was actually,
Jesus, that would have sucked.
This is interesting because I think this could have been good, but John McTiernan was considered to take over directing duties. What the offer was rescinded when he requested a 2-week shutdown to prepare and review the existing footage. Like, that's kind of like, hey, yeah, I do it. I just want to do my job better. Do you mind if I do a little research, make sure I'm making all the right decisions? No. You just got to keep going. Like, what? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Kevin Jarre wanted Liam Neeson for the role of Wyatt Earp and David Bowie for the role of Doc Holliday.
Bowie. It's Bowie.
What did I say? Bowie?
Bowie. It's not Sam Bowie.
That's what I said. Booby traps.
Give him the timber gloves.
The Clash.
The guy that makes the Bowie knife, so that's why it's spelled the same way. But yeah, anyways. Timothy Hutton was considered for the role of Sheriff John Behan, and Tommy Lee Jones for the role of Curly Bill Brocious. That would have been interesting, obviously, because that's literally the fugitive Tommy Lee Jones. Like, I mean, I love Powers Boothe, but that still would be.
Yeah. I mean, Powers Boothe just brought such a.
It's hard to imagine.
He brought a Joker aspect to that character, right? Where he's just laughing all the time and he's just having a great time, but he's vicious.
Yeah.
He's the Joker of this movie for sure.
Yeah.
He's
speaking of scores, Jerry Goldsmith of Rudy fame was originally attached to score this film, but had to bow out due to scheduling conflicts. Goldsmith personally recommended Bruce Broughton to score the film. So
that would have been nice.
Yeah, that works out. Actors such as Michael Madsen, Dennis Leary, Johnny Depp, Brendan Fraser, Gabrielle Anwar, Brad Pitt, and Timothy Hutton were all interested in starring in the film. Michael Douglas was also considered for the role of Doc Holliday because his dad did that same role. Jeremy Irons was also considered for that role. And then, William Baldwin, I think, was actually originally because they, because then he works with them in Backdraft as well.
Well, that would have been dreadful.
Nobody can do Val Kilmer, but Madsen would have been interesting to see him try. He has a little twinkle.
But that would, I don't know exactly what the role he was going for, but
according to your notes, Jennifer Connelly as Josephine Marcus, like I would have liked to see that.
I'm there with you. That's my note, man.
Yeah, I Jennifer Connelly, I've been in love with her since Labyrinth. So I mean, she is just a doll.
And this is like super young, like 20, 21, 22.
Ugh.
Although Dana Blaney does a great job, the character is preposterous, but she does.
It is. Yeah, it is. Foreshadowing, possibly.
Yeah.
All right. Do you guys want to do? Do you guys want to pick an alternative cast or no? Just the fucking one. Okay, we won't do that.
Let's push forward.
All right. Next, we'll go to most powerful scene that gets you emotional. This one doesn't necessarily have to be sad, just emotion. Get feelings from the scene. So that's how I'm going to define emotional. And again, it's not your fault. So I'm going to start with Pete again. Right?
Yep.
Oof. Yes. Yeah. There are several really powerful scenes. I mean, the most powerful one for me, it contains a line that I literally live by to this day. After I saw this movie, this line specifically stuck with me. It's the Doc dying scene. The way it's just the way it's constructed, and Wyatt comes in and he just wants to play and he's just not listening. And Doc is just like begging him almost. He's like, I just don't want to play anymore. You know what I mean? Like he's almost been playing his whole life, even though he's just a vicious person. You know what I mean? But he's done. And and the line where he's like, Wyatt's like, I don't know what to do with. Like, I just want a normal life. And he says, there is no normal life, Wyatt. There's just life. So get on with it. And I hold that line near and dear to my heart, because you really just can't live in the past. You can't like worry about the future. You just have to kind of be here now. It's one of the most powerful scenes I think I've ever seen in cinema, to be honest, if I'm going to be honest. So that's my most powerful scene, just because of that line alone.
Okay. Drew, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, if I had gone first, I would have said that scene too. It's beautiful. It's perfect. Part of the reason why I love that scene is it really the latter, I don't know, 20 to 30 minutes kind of goes in this direction anyway, as Doc gets sicker, but it shows his range, right? So he's this he's this playful cad that's also dangerous and all this throughout the whole movie, and his vulnerability and his pleading in that scene is amazing. So, but if
you ever were my friend, you'd leave.
So you talked about it. So, but I will use a similar scene from right kind of before this with Doc, and it's when they're like going out and getting kind of they're on the raid. They're like prepping for kind of the last push, and he's sitting there with Creek and the other guy. I can't remember his name.
Jack Johnson. No,
Turkey Jack Johnson.
Yeah,
Turkey Jack Johnson.
Why they're about how crazy this is, and then Doc is in bad shape. He's coughing up blood. He gets up. He's really struggling, and Creek asks him like, "Doc, why are you doing this?" And he says, I don't have very many.
Wyatt Earp is my friend.
Well, he's like, I don't have very many friends, and Creek's like, I do, and then Doc says, I don't, and I don't. It's just like it's kind of really the first really vulnerable moment where his character kind of turns, and you see this isn't just like he's along for the ride because it's fun and it's like Wyatt is my dude, and like he has my heart in a way like a brother does. And so he needs me. So no matter how bad I am, I'm coming. And so like that line, just those two simple words.
And here's the scene, because I wrote it down. He goes, Wyatt Earp is my friend. And then Turkey Creek goes, hell, I got lots of friends. And he goes, I don't. And that I don't, I agree with Drew, is just, it encapsulates that relationship. Yeah. It's really powerful. That's a good one.
All right, John Bear, what do you got?
They took them both. I got it written down in front of me, Doc. You ought to be in bed. What the hell are you doing this for anyway? Wyatt Earp is my friend, So, and then before that, I mean, I agree with Pete. Actually, I was going to go with Pete. Pete's where I was going with. That's just a powerful scene. And Wyatt Earp exits the room. Thanks for always being there, Doc. And he knows his friend's dying, and that's it. And that's their farewell. That's it. Throws the book his way. I forget the name of the book. Is it Life of Wyatt Earp? And
my friend Doc Holliday.
My friend Doc Holliday. Forgive me. And he just looks at it. There's a smirk. I'm still trying to figure out what Doc's thinking about when he's looking at his toes at the end of the bed. So I would like some context if someone knows. But
I do.
You see a man.
To die with your boots on is a big thing with cowboys and the Western gunslingers. If you died with your boots on, it means you died in a gun battle. So if you died without your shoes on, it was almost a weird kind of like, that means you're old and you just died naturally. So
Dang, that's awesome.
why he looks at his shoes. He's like, I'll be damned.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and this goes back to the writing, and should give me a point for that one, because the way that he ended that scene is just amazing. Like, who else would have thought that? It's
obviously fantastic. Didn't hear what I just said because it got rewritten by Kasdan.
No, but I read specifically he wrote that line.
Not this.
He takes credit. Yeah, so everyone knows that line.
The one line.
Well, I want something different again. When I went most powerful, it just like I said, it just gives me kind of chills. But it's ultimately, you know, right before they go out on their revenge tour, and you know, obviously the scene before, you see Wyatt, you know, with his brother's casket, and they're going, and it's like you basically think they're quitting. So you know, you kind of think it's going in a different direction, and then all of a sudden he comes, shoots them, and then you know, hell's coming with me, and then the music hits, and they're riding out of the sun, and it's this like just that sequence again, whether it's the shots, you know, again, them kind of coming out of the fire like their death, you know, just like going with that metaphor. You know, I think just all those three combinations, like you just got chills, and it's just like you're ready to run through a wall and like go kick the Cowboys' ass. So that for me,
and the beautiful part about that scene and what you just talked about is that it was, you know, in the opening wedding scene, right? That's what's described, and Ringo's like so admiring of it. Like he's like, I'm the one who's going to be that messenger of death, basically. But it's not him even a little bit. It's Wyatt. It's Wyatt and his crew. And I love the way that they completely transition that over.
He says, you know, and I'm, you know, hell's coming and I'm coming with you, or whatever. I totally messed that up, but again, that connects.
Hell's coming, what?
With me, but that connects to the line that Ringo says. So again, and then the visual,
so good,
visual of them with basically coming out of fire is like, again, like that's just brilliant filmmaking. And so that had the trifecta of the music, the shots, the script, like, so yeah, again, for me, that it gets me powerful. Like if I need to be put in a good mood, I can just watch that scene. So different emotion for me, but I went with, you know, the feeling of joy, bliss, you know, motivation, like it does it all for me. And so
and I've got three other like powerful scenes. Like there's so many in this movie. Like you could literally pick out of like 10 different powerful scenes.
Yeah, let me give the points first, and then you can continue. Just so
no, we don't need to continue. We just keep going. But I mean, I'm just talking about the
lots to choose from.
Yeah,
it's very robust, this movie.
Yeah, let me give the points, and then you can talk about it. I don't mind. So I'm gonna give the point to
It's either Peter or Drew, because I can say shit.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna go Pete. I'll give Pete the point.
Please.
So yeah,
Drew doesn't look happy.
Well, honestly, it's only because you went first. Like I think you know, sometimes it's all about who goes first, and sometimes it's who goes last because you get the last word in. And so, you know,
right,
part of it. Score right now: Pete 3, Drew 2, John 1. Pete, did you want to talk about that really quick? Just like name off some scenes, or where you get?
No, I mean, it's just more character building. Like after the OK Corral, when Doc and Wyatt just sort of lock eyes afterwards, and they just kind of walk off together. You know what I mean? You get the sense of like that bond, you know, that friendship, and it was just so powerful. And it was a beautifully shot and performed. I thought Morgan's death was a very powerful scene as well. A lot of death, obviously. Yeah. And then you look like someone just walked over your grave. You know, the final confrontation between Ringo and Doc Holliday is one of the most powerful choreographed sequences I think I've ever seen without a lot of movement.
Yeah.
It's subtle and it's precise, and it's beautifully done.
And of course, just the OK Corral scene, of course, you know what I mean? Like the way it's cut, the way they cut back and forth to the different emotions, the buildup of it, and then the wink, you know, like
the wink.
And then just even the action works really well. It's a well choreographed, well edited and shot sequence that again kind of gives you all the emotions, and it pays off because obviously it's hard to actually pay off a scene that, you know, you're really is anticipated for. Like that's what you look for when you go see this film, and I thought it delivered. So awesome. Let's move into model.
I'll move by us to just shout out like 800 more scenes when we have another category.
Yeah. Them
Sorry.
goes all the scenes right there.
Sorry.
And we can skip this one because there's no real scenes that are like purely funny. I mean, there's only
What?
Or feel good. Like just because you went off
Still
script
good.
doesn't mean
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. That's fine. That's fine. So we'll do Mother Meatloaf, scene that makes you laugh or feel good. So
Good.
Drew is going to start then. Drew, what do you got?
So mine is it's a kind of a longer scene, and it changes location a little bit, goes from inside to outside, but it's
Damn it. It's my scene.
it's all over the piece. So when he
Oriental.
goes into the Oriental, and he's talking to Milt, and he's like, "What's up with it? Like, why is it dead?" And he goes, "It's Billy Bob, like a fat Billy Bob, stealing cards," and it's so obnoxious. Though he has some funny lines too.
So
And
great.
when Y goes over, you got something on your mind? I just want to let you know you're sitting in my chair. Oh, really? And then like to watch, like just Wyatt staring him down, to watch him completely emasculate him without saying a word before he even like continues is unbelievable. He's already scared. The slaps, are you going to stand there and bleed? And then they go outside and we're introduced to Doc. And it's so good. So we go outside and we're introduced to Doc. He comes up, why? And then, he comes out.
Oh, I forgot you were there.
I forgot you.
He's not even paying him any attention.
Is like it's so good, and then like included in all of that is like right after that is Creek and Jack come out after shooting it up, and the marshal's trying to convince the four of them who've just met what a like great town this is, and they're shooting it up, and Doc's
so good.
First line is like very cosmopolitan.
Yeah.
And then they finish, and he's like, "Let me introduce you to a pair of fellow sophisticants." And then he's like bleeding from the ear. Just that Billy Bob to the outside, to emasculating him, to like the introduction, to Doc is so good.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You
know, that's interesting. Like the Oriental, like just that scene that really showed this movie. It really did use language that was accurate to the time. Like, no need to go heels to get a bulge on a dub like you. Like, who talks like that? Like, and it happens throughout the movie. The language that they use is so historically accurate. She doted on the Frowder. Like who talks like that? There's so many examples of. It's a great scene.
Yeah, for sure.
Go on.
John Beard.
Oh, well, I'm glad Drew went first because he explained that way better than I would have. But yeah, I have Oriental Saloon and Theater. Wyatt walks in and takes over the table from Billy Bob and gains the steak. But yeah, I just love when it gets outside that scene. It's a beautiful thing to see them so passive and dismissive, not paying any mind to the character in the street with the shotgun, and they just make him leave it on the ground. So yeah, great job, Drew. Get that point. Let's see what you could do.
Okay, that is a very funny scene, Drew, to be sure. The funniest scene, the most clever scene is Ringo threatening us. Doc Holliday starts putting on a show, and what does Doc Holliday do? He starts flipping around his cup. He starts doing his own thing with the cup. That is a beautiful scene, and it's funny. And it brings a lot of levity into an absolutely tense moment. One of the most intense scenes, but also holsters the cup at the end.
Love it.
Yeah. So I had the same scene for Pete, but I think what makes it and Pete, you would have easily gotten the point if you mentioned this part, but what makes that scene so good is not only do you have that physical duel that you have, but even right before that, they're dueling in Latin, and again, it's a completely different showdown. It's a verbal showdown, and it's in Latin as well as that. So to me, again, like with characters,
you're gonna penalize me for not expanding on a scene. I was talking about the comedic aspect of the scene. I didn't know I had to describe the entire sequence.
Well, because now it just becomes part of it's also just your explanation. So I'm gonna give Drew the point for explanation.
In vino veritas.
He did the best job of expressing his feelings about why the scene was great. But
that's ridiculous.
Pete, that's part of the explanation. That's 100%. Like John could have taken that point, but he basically was just like, good job, Drew.
Yeah, there's no way I was explaining it as well as Drew did, so I'm happy he did.
So again, John could have won it, even though Drew picked it first, but John didn't want to, and that's fine. That's the scoring system. So
I should have gone with Jason Priestley going around saying, I'm not, I'm nothing, but I would fight you right now if I was somebody. That he just like runs off.
all right, we got.
I love Jason Priestley in this movie.
Great.
And John won. All right, next we have line please. What's your favorite quote? And then we'll also your best underrated quote. So, this one we'll start with just best quote, and then we'll do underrated after that. Okay. So I'll start with Pete is going first on this one, right?
Should be John.
No, John says.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't go with the typical because there's so many amazing one-liners. I just went with my favorite quote because it made me just laugh. I watched it twice this weekend.
Remember the underrated one too, so it shouldn't be. Hopefully, your favorite isn't the most.
My favorite is the one mentioned earlier that Drew went through when hell I got a lot of friends, and Doc Holliday says I don't, because I mean you believe freaking Doc in that moment, the way Val delivered it, and it just the scene ends there, and you just get a little punch to the stomach because you know what he's saying is true, and that's why he's doing it. Yeah. So that was my underrated because it hit hard, but my favorite. Forgive me. My favorite. Forgive me. Underrated.
No. We'll just do that because I don't want to get cross pollinated.
Oh, cool.
What do you got?
Yeah.
You want to cross pollinate the squares. There's so many. Well, I mean, I've already told you my favorite quote of the movie, so I guess I have to give you another one.
What is the favorite quote? And then you can give another one too.
There is no normal life, Wyatt. There's just life. Yeah. So get on with it. That's like the Shawshank Redemption, where he's like, get busy living or get busy dying. Like you can't get better than those sorts of lines. But I mean, the best lines that come out of nowhere.
No, this one doesn't have to come out of nowhere. This is just like
no. I'm mid thought. The best lines that kind of come out of nowhere, but it happens twice in the movie and they're very powerful, is I'm your Huckleberry. When he's talking about, when Ringo's talking about, I play for blood, and he's like, and nobody wants to do it, but I'm your Huckleberry. And he goes, that's just my game. You know what I mean? Like he's so down. He's so down. Doc is so down to just, and then at the end of the scene, after everything is dispersed, he kind of sits back and goes, Barbara, proceeds. Like he just he goes on with this like normal life. I'm your Huckleberry is best quote.
Awesome. He comes out of the shadows of the trees at the end of the second time he says it. Oh, so it's
just like someone walked all over your grave. It's beautiful the way I'm performing tonight, by the way.
Yeah, you're on point.
Drew, what do you get?
Well, I'm your Huckleberry is iconic, but I guess I will go with Doc Holliday is just a font of them. He kind of crushing Ike in poker, and Ike's just getting increasingly mad. And he goes, Ike, maybe poker is just not your game. I know. Let's have a spelling contest.
Let's have a spelling contest. He's so elated when he's delivering that line.
It's so disrespectful. It's so spot on. It's like literally kick a man while he's so down and just call him the dumbest person on earth. It's so Doc Holliday. It's amazing.
It's smug. I love it.
Yeah.
That's the best line.
Yeah, I mean, I could go. Obviously, I'm wearing I'm your Huckleberry, so I could go with that one, or you tell him I'm coming and hell's coming with me. I mean, that's one I always say all the time. Those two I probably said the most, so I'm good with either. But again, I think everyone got the best reactions out of Drew's description, so I'm
still laughing.
The point. What?
I'm still laughing. I think it just can't stop laughing.
That's why Drew got.
I'm picturing Doug Kilmer's face. It's classic.
I know.
Let's have a spelling contest. He's like wasted out of his face.
Drew just took the lead 4-3-1. And then now we'll do. So I think we're starting with Pete on this one. Best underrated.
I need a tissue or something. The most underrated line. Let's say, I love. There's three of them that I really love. I'm gonna go with when before they go to the OK Corral and they're like, why? It's like, Doc, you don't have to. You don't need to be mixed up in this. And he just kind of steps forward with this look on his face. He's like, that is a hell of a thing for you to say to me. And like, he's so hurt by Wyatt wanting to just kind of keep him out of it. And that was Doc's moment to kind of reiterate the fact, like, no, you're my boy, I'm your boy, and we're in this shit together. And he was so angry about it. And the way he delivered the line was perfection.
Yeah, sure. Drew, what do you got?
That's a great one. I'm gonna go with Doc again at the very end, in the last duel with Johnny Ringo, and they're doing their thing, and he's just setting the scene, like he's smoking the cigarette. Johnny's like completely knows he's cooked. He's like tapping the pistol, like, and then draws, gets him, and then starts to also like taunt him, like come after him. But Johnny, you're no Daisy. You're no Daisy at all.
Right.
Like just twisting the knife as he's drawing his dime
in your face.
Just Daisy at all.
Yes.
John Bear, what do you got?
You were just too high strung.
Yep. He's just too high strung. He's already dead, right? He's already killed or shot him, right? When he says
he's already killed when he says that.
He's already killed. Yeah.
That's why he places the badge on him.
My underrated, I think it all makes a snicker, and get a laugh is when Billy and Doc are in the bar, and Billy's like, "Why, it's a drunk piano player. You're so drunk you can't hit nothing. In fact, you're probably seeing double." And then Doc pulled out the second gun. It's like, "I have two guns, one for each of y'all." So I thought it was slide slick, even in his drunken stupor state. Doc was coming with it the whole movie, so I'm digging that.
For sure.
Go on. Yes.
Yeah, mine is I kind of mentioned it before, but when Doc responds in Latin and then Johnny Ringo responds to him also in Latin. Again, the brilliance of the writing and also just the deeper meaning behind the sequence of lines. The
original writing, not the rewrite.
One that Pete wants to get credit for, not
right. The original screams there.
Yeah, that's my favorite. Yeah, I'm gonna give John the point. That's yeah, I agree.
What?
Point? I'll take it.
I like the scene.
Or shit.
All right, we have Drew 4, Pete 3, John 2. All right. Next, great shot. Your favorite shot in the film? Again, we'll do favorite and then underrated. So, Drew, with you. Best shot.
I'm gonna say the scene that is behind you guys, Paul, as they're starting their, or in the midst of their revenge ride, and the sun, and just like the Arizona heat behind them. The interesting thing when I was like kind of looking at this scene and thinking about it and some of the symbolism is like, because he had already yelled at them like, "Tell them I'm coming and health's coming with me," and then you see these guys like riding in front of the sunset, and it feels like Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, except for there's 5 of them, which is like, to me, is like, could have, like, for that purpose alone, I would have almost just like chosen to have 4 of them. But then I was looking at something and reading that on one of the frames, or a few of the frames in that shot, there's kind of a big gap between Wyatt in the middle and then the 2 on either side of him. And from what I've read, it's supposed to symbolize the missing brothers. that there's this space in between him and the rest of his posse to both his immediate left and immediate right that is supposed to be his brothers. And to me, I thought that that's interesting symbolism in addition to like the Horsemen of the Apocalypse riding in to take care of business. So that shot is one of the most iconic to me.
Yeah, for sure. John Mayer, what do you got?
Drew's right. That's why I have it up. If I had to pick one still photo to put up in my house, it would be this shot behind us, fire in the sky. So we'll go with another one. Probably when the three brothers and Docker walk in the famous walk to the OK Corral, spread apart.
Yeah.
Slow walk, four side by side, shoulder to shoulder, about a foot apart with guns drawn, heading over. The look and all. I like to really watch that scene just to see the look on all four of their faces, and they're all on point. They're all with the inner dialogue. They're hitting their characters. So not only is it a beautiful, beautiful shot, it's a classic shot, but you could tell all four of those guys are locked into the role that they're playing. So I really, really, really love that slow walk, but the one behind us is definitely my favorite, though.
Yeah,
and why is the building burning behind them? Because that shot is fucking awesome.
And then you're right, because I see the people come with the water bucket.
It's the same thing of the apocalypse.
It's a beautifully constructed shot.
It's the same thing,
but
it's not a way of actually having fire behind them. But it's the same thing with the four horsemen, because that's actually them when they're four.
And I used to assume that it was like that, the cowboys lit on fire because they're stirring up chefs. I've always assumed that, but I've, watching it, a couple times recently, I don't know if that's what it was, because when you go catch them, when they roll up to them and they're for the one, what's his name, is like bathing in the damn bucket, and they're all just saying they're chilling. Doesn't seem like they just lit a fire, but who knows why that building's on fire, Pete?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know
either.
I mean, I do know. I'm telling you, they wanted,
but I don't know,
and they did it as a practical, and they're assuming that people can just make that leap of, the Cowboys would have had to burn that building. It doesn't make like 100% sense, no, but they're definitely
because you don't go and burn a building and then start dunking your head in a barrel like everyone's just hanging out like it was nothing.
They're taking license with it so they can have the fire metaphor. I mean, again, it's 100%. That's
I don't think there's an answer to my question. It's just supposed to be a beautiful shot the way it is. And John's right on the money.
I think Pete's right with that now. I think it was just to add to the shot. Yeah.
They're just handing out points to each other. It's just crazy.
Yeah. Pete gets a point. He doesn't have to say anything.
I agree with that one. And I agree with Drew because I mean, there's so many beautiful silhouette shots in this movie. And I'd listed several of them, but the one that you guys have, of course, is the most iconic. What can I go with? My favorite shot is, and there's so many. I'll go with, I'm going to go with the Doc Holliday introduction into this movie. We're going to pan up from a poker table. We're going to reveal his face. He's coughing. He's sweaty. He's flipping the coin in his knuckles, and he delivers his peach of a hand line. And then Kate comes and sits down, and he's like, well, you're not wearing a bustle. And then that pays off at the end where, she's like, the horses are outside. He goes, well, that's why you're not wearing a bustle. So it's like this whole like kind of cool thing. But then, that's my favorite shot. It turns into one of the best scenes ever, right? Because we're just being introduced to Doc Holliday, and Val Kilmer's performances is iconic, as we've discussed. But I just thought the way they decided to kind of bring us as an audience into the world of Doc Holliday was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I have this one that I have behind me, of course. We've already talked about it. And so I'm going to give Drew the point on this one because he kind of nailed it.
What?
First. He actually would have liked yours. Because I think it's more underrated.
You would have liked mine what?
I think the shot you picked is a better for underrated category because it's super underrated. I agree, there's a lot, but it's not like the best film in the movie, but it's definitely amazing. So with that, Pete 4, Drew 4, John 2.
Time out.
No, Drew is 5. I have 3. John is 2.
Really?
Yes.
I love your math.
Pete gets a point for having proper math.
Now we got a game again. 5-4-2.
Now it's 5-4.
Let's go to underrated shot now. John, what do you have?
Oh, underrated shot. I forgot we had to add this one. Okay. Did John do his homework? Maybe, maybe not as I try to buy time. Oh gosh.
All right, we'll move to the last.
Move on.
All right, Pete, what do you got?
I think the most underrated shot is the introduction of Doc Holliday when he starts with the table. Like
I think it's a great answer.
Now the most underrated shot of this movie is John mentioned it earlier. It's Olaga 2 guns, one for each of you. That reverse spinning in different directions that he does with his guns, that's really difficult to do. And the way he pulls it off, it's beautiful. It's a fantastic shot.
Yeah,
and I couldn't do it.
Yeah, Drew, what do you got?
I love, and I think it's underrated because we haven't talked about it yet, is this shot right behind me. When, the train's left the station, he's just dug his spur into Ike's face and sends him packing, sends him running, and we really see Wyatt's character completely change, because right before this, he had been looking sad and this thing is over in the wagon, and they're going by and they're laughing and it smells like death. And then, you think maybe he's a beaten man. And then the very next scene is here. And this shot of his face as he's running off and he's saying, I'm telling him I'm coming and hell's coming with me, is a beautiful shot. He is as intimidating of a character as you can cut in a silhouette. And so I just think it's a great shot.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But is it really underrated though?
That's gonna be my only argument. I think it's literally the second best shot of the entire film. And I would accept that as someone's number one besides this shot.
Doc Holliday's performance is really underrated in this film, in my opinion.
People need to talk about it.
So John, what was yours again?
I didn't have one, but the one that
back to you.
Yeah, one that gave me the chills, and I forget, I think Pete mentioned it earlier. Maybe it was Drew. It kind of gave me the chills after watching the film last night again. Is at the end of the intro scene at the wedding, when they pull back on the wide shot, they're getting to the chicken, the pollo salad at the table. Looks like they're having like some tortillas pulled out, and you see in the wide shot just that bride getting pulled into the church in the background. It's chilling because you're assuming everything that's going to happen right before they do kill the priest. So just a nasty shot, and gave me the chills, and it kind of sets up the Cowboys and who they are.
Yeah, thank you.
That was you, Pete. That's
Yep,
it.
thank
Earlier.
you. Thank you. Yep, that was me.
Well, I want to give John bank that terms. I also don't want to promote that kind of behavior. Yeah, so I'm going to award him a point. But good job,
Who did you get the point to?
John. But
What?
I like his explanation.
You're giving him the point for something that I said
That's why I
word
don't
for
get the
word?
point.
He quoted you. He used the reference. No, but he's still.
You're in the footnotes.
So no point.
But I don't get the point. I get no point. I would have.
Because he didn't do it on his original turn. But I just still want an answer from him. All right. Next we have director's chair. What would you change about this film? I'm curious to hear people's thing on this one.
I know.
We're going mine first just because I think no one's gonna say it. But the one thing that's always bothered me the most about this film, and I love the actor, but Michael Rooker's curly hair is just like I either want it shorter or like straighten it like his normal hair. But I didn't like his long, and it wasn't even like long, like down to here. It was just like a little bit over his ears, and it's always bugged me because I think he looks like very physically imposing on camera, except in this movie with his hair. Like I loved him in Cliffhanger, and like name another film he's done, and he looks great in it. But I didn't like his curly hair length. It was so terrible.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody,
I get that. No, I never liked his look. That's for sure.
All right, so who are we starting with? John? No. That's gonna go Pete again.
I lost my turn.
Oh, it's me.
Yeah.
First again. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think the only flaw in this movie, um, this is gonna sound really harsh,
Nope. Say it.
because she's a very talented actress.
Boo, Dana.
Dana Dana was just not right for this role in a way. I just never got a sense that there was real compatibility between the two, between her and Wyatt, and I thought her performance was fine, but it just wasn't what it needed to be. I mean, this is supposed to be his future wife. This is supposed to be a vital role in this story, and I thought she was written, even though that goes against my earlier best Oscar award going to. I didn't think she was written very well.
That was the second writer. Sure.
The second writer,
Yeah,
I
this
hated
is
what
why.
I hated what the second writer did to this character very much so. Originally, it was beautiful. I don't know. I've always, even like after the first time I watched it, like I've never been attracted to Dana Delaney, and I just always had a problem with it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Drew, what do you got?
It's interesting. I think it was referenced by a couple of you earlier, so this may be an unpopular choice, but the Morgan's dying scene, like I love everything about the atmosphere of that night and Virgil and all that, but I'm just gonna say it right now, like I like Bill Paxton a lot. Morgan Earp is watching it again recently. He is like an idiot little brother.
He's so dopey.
He's so dumb and so like, you're the bee's knees, Wyatt, like 84 times.
You're the one, Wyatt. Like every time.
He's I got a little fed up with his character, so it's not that I was happy that he died, but
You were so happy.
but that scene is so over the top melodramatic to me. It's the only point of the film where it felt like they just took a hard turn towards Hollywood unapologetically, and like him leaving with his bloody hands and everybody getting out of his way, and then he's in the rain, is it gonna wash the blood away? And then to your point, Dana Delaney, idiot, walking across the street to him, waits right there, and you get away from me. It just all of a sudden was so.
It was very contrived, for sure.
Over the top and obvious, and the blood on the hands. It was too much, man.
And to your point, this was going to be the one that this was on my list, but the spirituality conversation that Morgan decides to have as everyone's like walking around earlier in the film, it never seemed like it was in place, and it just didn't fit with the movie. And I know they needed a way for Morgan when he's dying to say something at the end, and so they had to like shoehorn this spirituality conversation into the scene so that when he's dying, and then he's like, well, I don't say a damn thing, you know what I mean? Like it was very contrived. It is the only contrived moment in that film. Damn, I think Drew just got on that point.
Well,
hey, John, what do you got?
I think we should give Pete the point. Sorry, Drew, because I have the same thing again. There's just, I don't know if I blame Dana Delaney, or there's no freaking context as to why Wyatt would have a straying eye. Like, I know you see this wife in the corner that has a life struggle, but just because someone's dealing with a life struggle and addiction, you fucking ditch her and let's go find the next piece of tail because she's pretty and she kind of can act on stage. And she's a little funny. Like it doesn't make sense. There, like you don't see the compatibility.
I'm going to counter on that part, and I'm not saying they did it well, but they did counter what you're saying. There's a scene where they're like, I think it's Doc's kind of like, poking him like, oh, you're not attracted at all, and he was like, oh, so would you consider yourself settled down or the non-cheating type, something along those lines? Like, Yeah, sure. Okay, like it's very like obviously not hard line committal, right? So it theoretically it opens your mind to the fact that he is not
Open
all in on this woman.
then he's
And what
flawed.
a
Then
maiden
Wyatt Earp's
cures
flawed
the
for being an
driven
asshole.
snow.
Yeah, then Wyatt Earp's flawed for being an asshole. You got a wife sitting here with, like in the morphine sauce, the drip. She's on that fucking Western lean, and you're gonna ditch her. That's
Yes.
my thing. Like it's a chink
Yeah,
in
I
Wyatt's
would.
armor
You're
to
a
be a little
diet.
punk ass. That's what I'm saying. I don't like that aspect of, but I guess that's the written history, and that's what happens. So
I
he
think
was an asshole.
yeah, I think the casting's also well because you don't like that
Yeah.
dude. So you're just like,
Yeah.
Amy Delaney's way better. Go with her.
Yeah, I mean, then you throw Jennifer Connelly
I
in
don't
that
know.
role, like we
I mean-
discussed earlier, then you'd be like, oh shit, go get it, Wyatt.
Yeah,
Dana Delaney, the
Maybe.
opium
I think that's
addicted
the
wife.
real
I'm gonna go opium addicted wife.
Yeah, I mean, I I don't disagree with the Dana Delaney conversation, although I do think she's cute, but I agree with you.
She's cute. She's fine, but
She probably needs to be maybe more than cute.
needs to be Jennifer Connelly. Is what she needs to be.
Yeah, and that
That's what
might
she
have
needs to be.
because then it would,
Like career opportunities, Jennifer Connelly. You know what I mean?
yeah. Yeah. So I'm gonna give the point to this one to Drew. I think Drew
The clinch.
did a good job.
Yeah. I think you just sealed the deal on that one.
Yeah, but we'll still do our last category here, which is top 5 Kurt Russell movies. And I'm gonna say off the top of my head, I didn't see a lot of his like classic early stuff, and I need to go back and see some of the stuff because I'm like, or I saw him when I was a kid, but like literally like less than 10 years old. So I don't remember Big Trouble in Little China. I mean, I saw it like when I was 8, but my point is I'd like to see it as an adult, and I can probably
I
appreciate.
want to go back to some of these.
Yeah. No, that was just one thing I noticed. As like, I need to see some of these old school stuff.
I'm
So
gonna go back to some old
Renee?
Jennifer Connelly movies.
yeah, there you
Yeah, let's go wreck one.
go. Career opportunities.
Career.
Cool.
The wheel
The Wascoey Wabbit.
Yeah.
and the wolves.
All right. Who goes first in this one?
I think Drew.
Yeah. Okay. So Drew, what are your top 5 Kurt Russell movies?
Yes, Drew.
Number 5 is probably, I think there could be an argument that is not one of the 5 best films, but I love this movie, and it was one of my earliest introductions to Kurt Russell. It kind of came out in that time in my life, and I thought it was an intriguing, interesting, fun movie. Was Breakdown.
Breakdown. I don't think I've ever seen it.
Breakdown. Okay, let me research while you continue.
His wife gets kidnapped when they're on a road trip by
Oh,
Oh, the car breaks. Okay, yeah.
by JT Wall.
that was your intro to Kurt Russell, really? I feel like that was later.
One of the earlier ones. I didn't watch a ton of movies when I was like 12.
Right.
Star Wars 1,000 times and Back to the Future 1,000 times.
Breakdown.
Number 4, partly because I love this sports story for the history of our country. But him as Herb Brooks in A Miracle, I really like that movie. Number 4.
Yeah.
This is an earlier one that I did just rewatch recently. And man, was the like 80s a good time, like 80s / early 90s a good time for just like crazy futuristic like nihilism movies, like you just coming off Mad Max and all that. But Escape from New York is a great movie and a fun watch.
Now I have to look up nihilism and keep going.
Number 2, I think John mentioned it on his other list. I put it on this list, but I love The Hateful Eight. It's a hard watch at some points, but it is very unique and done only in the way that Quentin Tarantino can do it, and Kurt Russell is awesome in it. I love these moments for actors like him where they get to go and do something later in their career that's as cool as this role.
Right.
Number 1, Tombstone. It's rare.
Yeah, for sure.
Can you explain why you like Tombstone so much?
Oh,
John Bear, what do you got?
I got the feel good. I like Overboard at number 5.
oh,
It was cool.
I wanted to put it on my list.
Introduction to those two getting together, so I just remember watching it with my older sisters and my mom. So it's a good memory and it's a feel good movie and it's cool. Number 4, I went with Tango and Cash.
Nice.
Once again, just entertaining fun. I remember having fun with it, trying to go play that in the backyard with the homies, and, pretend like we were them. Even though it was later, I still think I was a teen. I was still think it was pretty awesome and pretending like I was them. So that's my number 4. I'm torn on my 2 and 3. You guys are gonna kill me, but I'll say for the sake of the show, my 3 is Miracle.
Okay.
I'm a fan of any sports movie and any motivational speech in the last 10 minutes of a film will get me. So hell of a closeout to see the Americans win in his speech, as a prelude to that victory out there. Don't Hate Me. Number 2, Tombstone. For all the reasons that we've discussed tonight, arguably number 1. But my number 1 is Backdraft. I grew up with, my uncles and Fire and, A Great Cousin. So I was all about it. I was glued to that movie. Went saw it a couple times until I had to meet with my uncles and they told me how off the movie was and the continuity was horrible and there were so many fake moments in the scene. But they still never ruined it for me. But I was just completely infatuated, I just loved that movie. Wrong word, but I just really watched that movie over and over and over and over again when it came out. So it was just my favorite.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Pete Dog, what do you got?
My top 5 Kurt Russell movies. Me and John are right on the money with each other. Even though my number 5 is Big Trouble in Little China, it is one of the funnier movies. It was it was almost like Die Hard before Die Hard. When Bruce Willis became like this action star comedy performer. Big Trouble in Little China was that, but nobody recognized it at all. But the role is there. Like he could have been John McClane, as far as I'm concerned. Number 4 is Tango and Cash. It's a hilarious, ridiculous, silly movie, but there's, I hold that movie very near and dear to my heart. It was my older brother's favorite movie. And I have to put it in my list. Number 3.
You also reenacted one of the scenes from it.
Yes, I did the nude scene. I did the naked scene. It is on camera somewhere. You can see my nice little ass walking around. Number 3, Hateful Eight. For all the reasons mentioned, it was just a resurgence. Even though he didn't need it. Although he just came into this film and did something that we've never seen him do, and it was phenomenal to watch. Number 2 and number 1 are the same as John. Number 2 is Tombstone. Number 1 is Backdraft for me, and I agree. There was just something about Backdraft, and there was something about his performance. I think the one line from Backdraft where I told you to stay right the fuck inside me, right? Like, they'll put the word fucking right in between a word where you're not really supposed to, and the performance, and he was so intense during that scene where you can actually see like his cheeks and jaws like twitching. I saw a performance in Kurt Russell in Backdraft that I haven't seen in another movie.
Yeah, it was great. All right, my turn, right?
Yep.
My number 5, and this is, probably a shocker to many, but I put Christmas Chronicles, and the only reason why is because
I'm just gonna do that because my kids love it.
Yeah, and
he's a good Santa. He's a good Santa.
He's obviously got like a great personality, laughable personality. He's got a great look to him too, especially like after Hateful Eight with the beard, and I think he's just really evolved into this excellent. Like I'm looking forward to the rest of his career because I think he can have a lot of great roles, and I think Christmas Chronicles is one of them. My number 4 is Hateful Eight. I do think it's a good performance. It's just he's obviously not like I don't think the most screen time in that movie, just because they obviously cut everywhere in that movie. But
he is sort of the focal point of that film.
he is. But I'm saying like compared to these other ones, though, he's not. It's just a lesser role. Is my point. My number 3 is Tango and Cash. Again, like this to me was my introduction to him, and he became the sidekick, but an A-lister sidekick. You know what I mean? Like he was Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon, and he really just set the stage that he was going to be a force in Hollywood, and that's I think why part of the reason why he was able to get the role in Tombstone was because of how well he did. Yeah, go ahead.
No, it's just so funny to hear you say like Tango and Cash like really opened him up to Hollywood. Like he's been acting in Hollywood since he was like 6. Like he's been in like so much stuff. Like
right, but
Tango and Cash was the one that really.
That's it.
Well, no. All I'm saying is in the next line of sequential order is Tombstone, and so like. But if Tango and Cash was,
it was just a funny statement. The way you said it was hilarious.
Never gave Tango and Cash that kind of credit for anything. So yeah, I hear what you're saying. But this is where at Action Podcast, we're outside the box thinkers, and
it's the Citizen Kane. It's the Citizen Kane.
Yeah, Tango and Cash influential like Russell's career. My number 2, and I'm with you guys. I mean, I can flip these back and forth. My number 2 is Backdraft, only because. Again, when I think of Wyatt Earp, I think of Kurt Russell. And when I think of Kurt Russell, I think of Wyatt Earp. And unfortunately, I don't think, like, I keep forgetting his character name in Backdraft. But it's a great role. And I think that's, also going to be one of his career defining roles. But I think just the sheer impact that.
Is Stephen McCaffrey.
Yeah.
Of the McCaffrey brothers.
Right. What was the nickname, though? I keep thinking Bull, but Bull's the other guy.
Yeah, Bull's the one who ends up being the killer.
No, he's Axe, right?
I don't remember.
I think his name is Axe. And anyways, we digress.
But he was out there doing.
Yeah. But ultimately, yeah, that's why I just put Tombstone over. Again, I think, and again, when you're talking about a historical character as well, it's been played by multiple people. I do think that's another whole thing, like what Heath Ledger did to Joker. Like he almost stole it from Jack Nicholson. You know what I mean? And that's incredible. So
wow, like Paul.
Many people have been a Wyatt Earp, but Kurt Russell to me will always be Wyatt Earp. And cinema.
Yeah, it's so funny you say that because like I always wanted people to be like, like in the movie where like somebody's like, I'm Wyatt Earp, like Wyatt Earp, Dodge City. You know what I mean? Like I always wanted like somebody like I meet somebody on the street one day. I'm like, hey, I'm Peter Escarcega. Peter Escarcega, Monrovia. I just wanted somebody to just like reference me from my hometown or something.
Yeah, that'd be
Peter Action Podcast.
Awesome. I'm actually going to give the point to John Bear. I think me and his order were a little bit more closer than Pete's was. But you pretty much.
Me and John were
I'm giving him
super tight on that one.
I'm giving him overboard too. But to know that,
points.
To know what that does not.
Oh, look at John with his points.
Ultimately, Drew is still the winner,
so cute.
no matter what. So Drew 6, Pete 3, John 3. So good game, everyone. Drew, I don't know if you have a couple suggestions that you're thinking of for being the winner.
Drew crushed today, man. Really well thought out, and I couldn't disagree. In fact, every time you opened your mouth today, I wanted to agree with you and give you points.
Yeah.
I
well done.
Love this movie. It was fun.
So good.
A few movies.
We still need to do Wedding Crashers.
Ooh.
Wedding Crash.
I think we're doing with John and
And then
Lauren.
we don't see Crimson Tide.
Oh, yeah.
No, we're doing John and Lauren. So Wedding Crashers, we can do Wedding Crashers.
Crimson Tide. Very different.
We can do
What are we feeling? Are we feeling comedy? Are we feeling drama?
I'm open to it. We can do Happy Gilmore. We can do.
Ultimately, it's Drew's decision.
80s classic.
Give
80s teen classic.
I don't want to pick like a Donnie Darko film. That's not.
I know. I don't win. Fast Times.
No.
We haven't done The Rock. We haven't done Crimson Tide.
Okay, we're all yapping away. Meanwhile, Drew is sitting there quiet because it's his decision.
I mean, we don't like. I don't know.
Come on, Drew.
Do we want to do Crimson Tide? We just talked about it.
Yeah,
I could do Crimson Tide today.
Right now.
You do it right now. Welcome to part 2 of the Tombstone podcast.
John Bear, do you like Crimson Tide?
I don't know. I watched it. I enjoyed it.
Watch it again.
I'll watch it again.
It's
I
phenomenal.
feel like there's so many films I have to rewatch after tonight's podcast. Like there's so many westerns I want to go and revisit and Kurt Russell movies.
But yeah, I accept Drew's offer of Crimson Tide. I think we actually already did it in another podcast, but then I think we got delayed. 100% down for Crimson Tide, one of my favorite films. So definitely on board for that one. But yeah,
amazing.
Thank you for everyone for joining us. I loved our discourse over Tombstone. Thank again, Drew and John Bear. Appreciate you guys. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Also,
and Peter, thank you to Peter.
Peter. Well, yeah, you're always here.
Okay. Still,
I was about to say thank you to Peter and Paul for having me.
I would like some thanks. You know,
feel honored to be on the hunt.
Yeah. Appreciate you guys coming together and making this happen. And again, we're gonna keep trying to pump these more out like we used to do. So stay tuned for that. We also have, like I mentioned earlier, Drew and my other podcast, Paul's Old Ass Movie Classics. We just did a Third Man, which will be coming out. And lastly, we have movie news that we also do. So Pete and I did one where we went over all the new releases that are coming up, a lot of new movies that have been greenlit, all that good stuff, including Top Gun 3. So check that one out. But with that, guys, that is a cut.
Happy 100th episode.
Thanks, guys.
Happy 100.
Celebration things. Remember, I did the confetti.
Just do it online.
Happy. All right. Thanks, guys.